This is the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast. The Legendino is all the way in Rio, where the talking point is of a young lady who wheeled her deceased relative to a bank to get him to sign um, a loan that he had agreed to sign anyway. So she thought she'd take him along. Uh, what was the outcome of that, Tim? You're laughing
Yeah,
your head
well,
off.
I I think frankly, I think she kind of deserves to get away with it, but it looks like she's not going to. The defense strategy is, oh, she's got mental problems, and no, I think it's just a case that he died on the very day that they're going to get this money. He died with precious little consideration for family finances. It's such a Rio story. It's one of those things that deserves to be made into a film, I think.
I think it will be.
It's
Do you know that was my first thought, Tim? I thought
Yeah.
to myself, okay, she's not going to get away with it, but at least she's got the movie rights.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make that one. You can't go to a Hollywood
No.
scriptwriter to claim that
Mm,
he made it up in his head. Not
yeah.
possible. Not
Yeah. There's,
possible.
there's probably not a sequel in it though, I doubt. I think it's one of those, it's unless you can find a way to bring him back to life again. I don't know. But
Everything's
and
possible if you're
the
a
uh
believer.
the events of what we're going to talk about today, I think that they would warrant a film as well.
Well, yeah, I think so. Dramatic FA Cup semi-final, Coventry City versus Leeds United, 12th of April 1987, as Coventry return to the semi-final of the FA Cup this weekend at Wembley as we speak.
Yes, against Manchester United.
Mm.
And the moment that you start to believe that Coventry might finally have a shot at getting a trophy is the fourth round of the Cup in 1987 when they're drawn away to Man United. So you think that's it. It's all over there. And they win 1-0. Now, Coventry, it was a joke on Monty Python. You ever seen this? Monty
Yeah,
Python.
the trick question for
That's it.
was it Archimedes or
No, it was
Socrates or
Karl
one of them?
Marx. It was
It was
Karl
Karl Marx.
Marx.
So
Yeah.
yes, of course it
Yeah, it's
was.
Karl
Yes,
Marx.
it
So
was.
that they had Karl Marx on in a kind of mastermind thing, and they're
Yeah, yeah.
asking him questions. And one of the question is, and how many times have Coventry City won the English FA Cup? And he looks baffled, as well he might. Trick question. Coventry have never won. That joke had to be retired, of
Yes,
course,
of course.
after 1987. And this is something that means a great deal to me because I was there for this game, uh, this is at Hillsborough against Leeds. Um, I was at college there, and this is my final year at college, 86 to 87.
In Coventry.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a field outside Coventry, but
Yeah.
it's Coventry.
Warwick
Uh,
University, anyway.
that's the one. Yep. And so I was there 84 to 87. And the first couple of years, I hadn't paid a great deal of attention. I'd gone to the odd game, but not really. I mean, Coventry were one of those sides who every year was a battle against relegation. They were always in the first division, but you always wondered how. Uh, and at that time, music was still much more important to me than football. And I played quite a lot of football and followed it. And as we'll get into later on, that starts to change, and it starts to change. The big moment for me, an absolutely decisive moment in everything that I've done since, is the '86 World Cup. The whole build up and then the tournaments, and watching that surrounded by people from not only all around the country but all around the world, because I've never been abroad at this point. It just reignites that kind of childhood passion for football. So the '86 World Cup comes and goes, and in the season afterwards, I want to be in the stadium more. I want to follow this more. And it just so happened, just by coincidence, Coventry start the year really, really well. They're up towards the top of the table, and there's a good little team there. Uh, and you're thinking, wow, this is interesting. That this Coventry team, they're going to win anything? Well, obviously, they're not going to win the Championship, League Cup, maybe League Cup, and they draw Liverpool. and Liverpool do a real job and get a 0-0 at Coventry, and then beat them easily at back at Anfield. So all that's left is the FA Cup, and they're only drawn at home once in the entire run to the final, which was the first round, the third round. I remember being there, that they beat Bolton easily, and then the next round, as I say, is Man United. So you're thinking, well, that's that then. You know, that's it's a good season. Good season. They're not going to go down, but you know, they're going to be top half of the table. But and then they beat Man United, and at this point, the city really starts to mobilise. The city really starts to believe that finally it could be their year. They're away again at Stoke, and then away at Sheffield Wednesday, Hillsborough in the quarterfinal, and they win there and win well. Semi-final time, back at Hillsborough. Now, this, you might think this is very strange. They're playing at Hillsborough, given the fact that the opposition is Leeds, because it's not far off being a home game for Leeds. Leeds are in the old second division at this point, but the reason that it's in Leeds, it's in Hillsborough, which at least Coventry had the experience of having won the previous round there, so there was some familiarity. But the reason that it's in Sheffield is that there was this huge fear of the Leeds supporters. This game, it's one of the first FA Cup finals that was live on TV. And it was the biggest police operation there had ever been for a football game at this point, because of the Leeds fans, the fear of the Leeds fans. So the idea is, let's get the Leeds fans travelling as short a distance as possible, thus reducing the range of chaos that they can cause, and give Coventry the much longer drive up towards the north. So a few of us, and I'd been to most of the home games that year, and we kind of hired a van to drive up to Hillsborough, and this for me is so important for my pleasure that day, and for the whole context. On the way up, we met a few vans and cars of Leeds fans who'd driven all the way down for one reason and one reason alone: to racially abuse Coventry supporters on the way up. And the big chance was, you got a team full of N-words. And this is hugely significant, obviously, because we're talking about Coventry. Coventry was two-tone city. No, it's a city. The Specials, they're not my favourite band, but I think they're the most important of all of those bands. Jerry Dammers and his idea, the explicit multiracial idea, which there have been some bands before, but this was really explicit at a time there in the late 70s when the National Front had been on the rise, and so on. And the Coventry team, there were 3 black players in it. One of them was a local lad, a fella called Lloyd McGrath, central midfielder.
Yeah.
No great class, but he covered every blade. He was a little hitman. He was the kind of fella that you want on your side. Then there was Big Cyril, the star of the show. It's a real feather in Coventry's cap to have signed Cyril Regis. It always amazes me that Cyril played his football in the Midlands, mainly with West Brom, a little bit with Villa later on, because he's not a Midlander. I think he's came over young and was a Londoner. And Cyril was just a fantastic player, an unbelievable centre forward. One of those players you look at and you think he could have been even better. Could have been Alan Shearer plus, because he had it all. Perhaps he was just a little bit too nice. I don't know, but he was a fantastic player. And there was another one who was from Manchester, who had as a youngster had played for Man City in the 81 final against Tottenham. I remember when we did that game on the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast with Paulo Hewitt.
Yeah.
We all picked up on the language that the commentators were using about Dave Bennett.
Yeah.
You know, very, very antiquated.
Yeah.
And Dave Bennett was a star in his own way. He was a right winger, and he was really skillful. He was really elusive. There was an air of swagger about him, and as we will see, he plays a vital part in this game, and so all of that heavy atmosphere, it was all made very real to me by seeing these Leeds fans. They've come all the way down purely and simply to abuse Coventry fans about the racial makeup of the team.
Yeah, I do remember actually. Something I'd forgotten about. But the Leeds fans did have a reputation for being racist. And I can't remember where that came from, but that is part of the landscape of my football supporting in the past somewhere. They did have a reputation. Don't know why, because actually, subsequently, I've had reason to say that these fans are the only fans in the country that remember this black vagrant, as he was described, who lived up in Leeds. Leeds fans do chant his name somewhat. Perhaps that's to taunt the local Yorkshire constabulary or whatever. I don't know the reason why. So the way I saw it subsequently, it's really interesting how perception can change over your experiences like this. But David Bennett, when you said antiquated language that the commentators were using, it was virtually Othello-esque. At the beginning of Othello, they're crying out, lock up your daughters, because this black ram has come to top your white ewes. It wasn't that antiquated, I know. But poor David Bennett, he must have got this whenever he played on the field, because they weren't embarrassed about what they were saying about it. It was kind of like, yeah, this is how it goes. I don't think
that generation was they had to be tough, didn't they? They
I don't
really
think
had to be tough.
yeah, I don't think they'd have talked to about Cyril Regis in that way, because he had a reputation of, I don't know what it is, but it feels like he had perhaps a certain kind of gravitas about him. Like, Les Ferdinand's not far off this generation. I know it's different, but not far off this generation. But, nobody would have talked about him in the way they talked about David Bennett and so on. But what a landscape for a match on a very sunny day, as I saw from from the clips on YouTube. What do you remember about it? You were there.
The Coventry side, they were notoriously bad starters. And you saw that in this game. In fact, you see this in the FA Cup final, when I think one of the things that helps them in the FA Cup final against Tottenham is that they concede right at the start of the game. And it shakes them out of the bad start, and that they were level quite early on. So what I remember is, I remember the Leeds fans. I'd never heard that chant before. Leeds, 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 Leeds. And it was terrifying. I was at the other end of the ground from the one which became notorious in the semi-final 2 years later. But the Leeds fans, and you could see how big some of them were. And that Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. I find that quite wow. I remember that in the arena of Hillsborough, and I remember Leeds coming out, because Coventry were favourites, obviously, as the first division side, top half of the first division, Leeds in the second. But Leeds came out really, really for business, and they took advantage of the slow Coventry start, and they went one up relatively early. It was a corner, a goal from David Rennie with a running header, but they could have had more. They were Coventry. The Coventry side, he had a terrific goalkeeper, Big Oggy, Steve Agrizovic, who'd been Liverpool reserve for years and years and years. I think both to Clements and to Grobbelaar as well. He'd been there for years. And he really earned his money this day. At the start, he was keeping them in the game. because Leeds were absolutely rampant. The best Leeds players, they had a young central midfielder called John Sheridan, who later went on to play for many times for Republic of Ireland, who could really pass the ball. Right winger was Andy Ritchie, who had a short but successful career as a youngster with Man United. He'd left looking for regular first team football and played at Brighton, and then ended up at Leeds. And he was a real handful down the right wing against probably Coventry's weakest player, the left back Greg Downs. And so Leeds were absolutely rampant for a while, and you were quite happy that it was only 1-0. And the game, it seemed to be drifting away. There was an air of pessimism in the stands. And the whole thing turns on a mistake by another experienced player. I think he was the captain of Leeds, Brendan Ormsby, who's the captain and the centre back. And he does one of those things where he's just trying to let the ball roll out for a goal kick.
Yeah, he thinks he's clever, you see, but he doesn't have the fitness either. One of the things you notice here is how different they are in fitness. So if he had the fitness to... Anyway, you tell the story. Apologies.
Yeah, and he doesn't... Yeah. You always think afterwards, he's thinking, what's the worst thing that could have happened had I done it differently? Well, the very worst thing is they get a corner.
Yeah.
You know... Or, more likely boot it out for a throw-in, But the worst case scenario is a corner if you don't take the risk of just letting the ball run out. Who gets in there? Who robs the ball from him? Dave Bennett. Dave Bennett's day, and how appropriate it was that it was Dave Bennett's day. So Bennett, maybe, had this been a run-of-the-mill game, he wouldn't have bothered. But you're 1-0 down. There's only just over 20 minutes left in an FA Cup semi-final. This is the day when you're really gonna make that effort. And so he slides in, wins the ball, beautifully balanced. Dave Bennett, beautifully balanced, and he's on his feet, pulls it across to the danger area, and the Coventry substitute. He was the man that they turned to when you're in trouble. Tiny little fella. You'll not see nothing like Mickey Ginn. Come on without, come on within.
Of course. That was made for that song.
Yes, the mighty Ginn. And he's just arriving at the far post to tuck it in. And that changes the game. That one mistake by an experienced, I think the captain, by Brendan Ormsby, it entirely changes the game. And then it's Coventry who are absolutely rampant. And then you get one of the most extraordinary stories of this FA Cup run. Coventry, they played two up front. Not always during the season, but for this game and all through the cup run, along with Big Cyril, there's this journeyman centre forward called Keith Houchin. I can't remember where they've signed him from. He's slow. He doesn't seem to add very much. And in the league, he did absolutely nothing. And I don't think he did anything afterwards. But during the cup, during the cup run, every game, game after game after game, I think it was Houchin who decided the quarter-final against Sheffield Wednesday. And he was joking about it afterwards. He was saying, I was going to get hooked off. I could see the hooks. I could see them. It was John Sillett, the manager. I could see him with his hook ready to take me off. And he ends up scoring. And he did it again. And he did it in the final. It's one of those things that just the magic of those few games where he was just illuminated, and he could do
a different discipline, Tim. That people underestimate. In fact, I think every football game has a different discipline to it, but a cup game versus a league game are just two different beasts.
Sure.
If you try and play it the same way, you're going to get caught out. I mean, we know, don't we, that if you try and play a cup game like a league game, well, you're going to go home. you're going to go home regretting that. And I'm sure it's the other way around as well. If you play a league game like it was a cup final, you're going to let in some goals in the back.
Yeah, but these are things of strategy. This wasn't strategy. This was just a player who was a different player in those few cup games.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite. It's a little bit like Skilacci in the 1990 World Cup when he was suddenly brilliant and he was never as good again. That was just his moment.
Fair enough. That's a strong possibility. But there is the point I was trying to make was just maybe he was a player that was much more suited to the cup game than to the league game. You know, there are some players who don't do anything in the league and they do really well in cup competitions. You know, even now Champions League and so I can't remember who I'm thinking of off the top of my head. Sometimes it's like that. Some, you know, big match players are different from know normal league players. It's the same person.
It's the big match thing, isn't it? You know, but anyway, he had it, and so he scored the goal that put Coventry ahead. There's a vital little, it's often missed this, just how good Cyril was. There's a vital little touch from Cyril. He wins the flick on and he knows where he's putting it. And mighty little Mickey Ginn knows where he's putting it. So Mickey Ginn latches on. So Cyril's flick on and then sets up Houchin, who like an Olympic skier slaloms his way through and beats Mervyn Day, the one-time child prodigy at West Ham. So 2-1, and not long left. Game, set, and match. Oh no, it isn't. Oh no, it isn't.
Much
because
more to come.
Yeah, you know what all those Leeds, you know that they're going to come. They're going to come roaring back. And do they? So, you know, it's so tense. It's a great game of football. It must have been, I think, for the neutral watching on TV, must have been a fabulous spectacle to have enjoyed a game like that. That was full of ebbs and flows. And Leeds pull one back again. I think it's Ritchie with the cross from the right, and it's the substitute striker Edwards with a close range header, with a free header from close range. And there are chances, and it's all so nervous, so nervy. And then extra time. In we go into extra time. After Mickey Ginn had equalised, I've decided Coventry are going to win. Until the equaliser, I'm thinking Leeds are going to do this. But that mistake from Brendan Ormsby, it just shook up the match and shook up the pieces, and they come back to earth differently. So as we go into extra time, I'm still expecting a Coventry win. And one of those great things from being at the game, it happens. The vital goal in extra time happens right in front of the goal where the Coventry fans are. So we just have this wonderful view. And again,
is that where you are? Is that where you are in the stadium as well?
That's it. Yeah, behind the goal with the Coventry fans. And again, it's Big Cyril getting up and Cyril Regis was just a tank, really classy as well. I really think he was a wonderful player, and I'm curious to know why he wasn't just that little bit better, that little bit that separates the very good from the really true world class great that I think that he could have been. And perhaps, as I say, he was a little bit too gentle, a little bit too nice.
See, Mr. Nice Guy. The clips on YouTube though show that he suffered a lot of misses in this match.
He did, yes.
And you wonder.
But see, that's why I'm defending him, because you can look at those clips and think, oh, Regis missed again and again and again and again. And he, in front of goal, it wasn't his happiest day. But as I say, 2 of the goals, his participation in the air is absolutely vital. And he goes up for the big header on the 3rd vital goal, and it just falls 2 yards out to Dave Bennett. And has there ever been a more just climax to a game after all of the scenario that I've presented of what's gone on before the game?
Well, yeah,
has there ever been a more just scenario? than Dave Bennett. And just a footnote on Dave Bennett, because the final was played at Wembley, obviously against Tottenham. The final was a great game as well, and Brazil was in the stands because Brazil had a friendly against England a few days later. So the Brazil team are watching, and their big comment watching the game was, "Why isn't this Dave Bennett fella in the England team?"
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. As
Yeah,
you
and
well
again,
know.
perhaps with him, he just wasn't consistent enough.
Yeah,
But this was his time, and he had a great game in the final, and he had a good game this time, and he's involved he helps make, he's man of the match, really, I think, because without his participation, there's no equaliser. Without him winning the ball, hooking the ball away from Brendan Ormsby on the line, there's no equaliser and Leeds win the game. And he scores the winner. Although it's a close run between him and the goalkeeper, Agrizovic, because Agrizovic still has to come up really.
Oggy,
still has to come up really, really, really big to get Coventry over the line. And then I remember the celebrations at the end, and I remember that the standout moment, the happiest moment for me from this whole day, this whole experience, was driving back down and getting into Coventry and seeing that the entire city had come out onto the streets to greet us, to greet all of the fans who'd gone up, and, primarily to greet the team, but also to greet the fans. And that was just a magical moment. You felt like you were liberating Paris in 1944. That's honestly,
that is the one liberation that I wish I was on,
right.
Because you've got all the beautiful French and Parisian women throwing roses at you, and the French men tugging their forelock at you and saying, "Look, yeah, you Germanic lot, you are a lot better at fighting these wars than we are. Here you lot go again. After beating Napoleon at Waterloo, you're back again, liberating us, are you?" And you could see them feeling vexed that all the ladies, you're what is it? Too rich and too
overpaid, oversexed, and over here.
Over here, yeah, exactly. Oh, too here. Oh, how do you say over? Plus de l'argent, plus d'argent, plus d'amour. Plus d'amour. Oh, vous êtes ici. No. You can see them doing that.
Ça n'est pas plein pour moi.
Indeed. Do you know what? I didn't know the background or the sort of social and cultural landscape. Well, I knew cultural landscape. I didn't think that it would play a part in this, though. But the social landscape of the racism at the time. From once you told us that, I started thinking in my head, I hope, because like you say, most of the action, certainly from a Coventry perspective, most of the goals come in the second half, don't they? Later on in the game. In any case, so I was hoping you were going to say, well, the Coventry manager had a word in his ear at half time and said, "Do you know what them lot are calling you?" I mean, not necessarily the fans, the commentators. Do you know how they're describing you? Do you know what I mean?
I think they knew.
Yeah, well, that probably put a spark up in them and all. Well, why not? This is such a great match. You can tell from watching the clips that it must have been amazing to have been there. You can sense the atmosphere. There's just so much toing and froing. It's what you could argue is an open game, a really open game.
It was, yes.
People going out.
You're right. You're right about the atmosphere, because that thing of the Leeds fans, it just gave it an edge. There's a real edge there that I don't know if it's still there in British stadiums now. You hope it isn't, really, because that was an edge of fear of what could happen. But
particularly afterwards.
Yeah, it's a little bit like when we were kids, like going to some of those gigs, when, you know, that fabulous line from Gino, polishing steps and keeping out of the fights.
Mm,
You know, there was that edge
mm.
there around.
And you can't avoid the fact that this is 2 years before Hillsborough. Tragedy for Liverpool fans, of course, where 97 people died. And according to what I've read from the Hillsborough report, there was a crush at this match. 2 years before Hillsborough, there was
Well,
actually a crush.
this is the other end to where I was. But the problem was obvious when Tottenham had been through this in '81. You know, there was again at that end, the Leppings Lane end of the ground. So at our end, I didn't experience anything like that. But when you look back and think, this is something I thought a lot after Hillsborough. Thought a lot about it. I think, how many times did we nearly get there? Nearly. I remember being at an Arsenal game, bizarrely enough, and it's one that Nick Hornby writes about in Fever Pitch. This is 1980. Right, it's midweek, Arsenal's first home game of the season, and it's against Southampton. And Southampton are the glamour team at the time. They've just signed Kevin Keegan, who's the biggest star in English football. And they've got, I think it's Alan Ball, and they've got other stars as well. They're a glamour team, Southampton. So to have this as your first home game, and all the Arsenal fans were out to see their new left back, Kenny Sansom, because that's what Arsenal fans did. They've signed a new defender. Let's go and see our new defender.
Come on, man.
So, you know, I went along on the North Bank, you know, but the crush outside the ground, I was a little 15-year-old kid. And I honestly thought I was going to die during that. It's one of the most frightening experiences I've ever had. And he got through it and it was all right. And Hornby writes about that very game because he thinks about this after Hillsborough. He thinks, you know, all those times you looked across and you saw a police horse there and he thought they've got it under control, when really they hadn't.
Mm.
And what happened in Hillsborough '89, it could have happened so many other times. That does scar you, I think. That knowledge that makes you scared of what could have been. But that was certainly my reaction to when it happened, remembering the crush that I was caught up in Highbury in 1980.
Yeah, it seems to me as if the backdrop to this match is, you know, on reflection, probably as important as
it's the old world, isn't it? In so many ways, different. It's the old world of football. It's the old world of terraces and paying at the turnstile and racism. It's the old world that we're seeing here.
You certainly see that with, like I say, the difference in physique. You know, when you see the Leeds centre back, like racing David Bennett for the ball and shepherding the ball out, as you say, you just look at his legs, you think, oh, I was fitter than that at that age. Yeah. Oh, you look at that, you think it's unreal to think about the physiques. Some people did stand out in those days because they had these immense physiques, you know.
Cyril.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I was thinking of Malcolm McDonald of Newcastle. He's the one that you could see was a proper. He looked like some of the hard nuts when I was at school, his physique sort of thing. But when you at the time, we couldn't have imagined that football would leap to where it is today. It's a huge leap for mankind, you know.
It's a massive leap.
It's unrecognizable virtually. The speed at which they play, the way they play, the tactics, etc. People talk a lot about the, you know, foreign players coming in. I don't think that is as much of a paradigm shift as, you know, things like fitness, diet.
But I think that the foreign players have quite a lot to do with that, because the English players, most of them, the just amount they were drinking, which is it's unreal. And when a lot of the foreigners came in, and they're not necessarily from beer cultures, I think that makes a huge difference, because before, teams, yeah, I've spoken to players. Yeah, we used to go out 2 3 times a week, and we got absolutely shit arsed 2 or 3 times a week, and you had to do it. If you didn't, you get frozen out. And
Mm.
then the foreign players come in and they don't want to know. So, oh yeah, I can be like him. So I think it's a huge. I agree. I agree with you. The foreign players coming in is by no means the only shift. On the big shift, really, is the money comes in and it's part of the global entertainment industry. Instead of, it was like our thing, wasn't it? It was like it was like our thing. You know, it was low. I was thinking about this the other day when I was watching the Fever Pitch film, the film with Colin Firth
Yeah.
around. And he plays a teacher, and it's based around Arsenal winning the title in '89, and it goes back to '68, which is the first time that he goes to Highbury with his dad, and he just falls in love with it. Even before he takes his seat in the stand, he just falls in love with this world. And in those 21 years between '68 and '89, the experience has hardly changed. And if you took it back another 21 years to 1947, the experience had hardly changed. It was basically the same thing.
Same.
It
Yeah.
it, 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 it
Yeah.
was it, it
Yeah.
was it was a world of fried onions and noisy male working class
Black caps and all.
yeah, yes, yeah. But and so you think of the way that it stayed basically the same between 47 and 89, and the changes that we've seen subsequently to '89. You're right; those changes are extraordinary.
Huge. Okay, and there was a musical landscape, of course, at the time. 1987, musically, I remember quite well actually. Coming out of university and everything like that, and working with the Ents, lot, the entertainment lot at university as well. So some of the artists who are in the charts.
You're
uh,
booking the acts, are you? You're booking them.
No, I wasn't on that level. I wasn't that high up in the food chain. No, I was a much more junior because I had my mind on politics more, but music was still in the blood, so they let me
Yeah,
come in at weekends. I was only there to get in free to the gigs and everything.
obviously.
But I do remember this. So it's 1987. This is the charts of the 12th of April to the 18th of April on this week where Coventry beat Leeds United in the semi-final of the FA Cup. At number one is a charity song, which again reminds you of what was going on there. This is the Zeebrugge ferry disaster
That's right.
song, Let It Be, Ferry Aid, to number one. But Madonna, La Isla Bonita is at number two. Lean on Me by Club Nouveau is at number three. Judy Boucher, who is considered to be a reggae singer, but here you can hear it's definitely on the lover's end of it, although she's an older generation than my wife's generation, but Can't Be Without, I hope, I think, I'm pretty sure. Apologies, I suddenly realized, don't want to insult anybody, but Can't Be With You Tonight at number four. Soft reggae soul, if you like. Janet Jackson's there. Number six, Respectable by Mel and Kim. Okay, we can dismiss it as a sort of like a very fluffy Stock Aitken and Waterman pop tune of the 1987 era where they dominated, Stock Aitken and Waterman dominated the charts as songwriters and producers. But the reason why this is always well worth talking about is that two sisters, Mel and Kim, and Mel died of cancer not long after this, only
Mm,
a year or two afterwards. And it wasn't, it wasn't, it was sadly, she was dignified, but all around her were trying to make as much money as possible. So,
mm,
uh, where I worked on one of these newspapers, as you know, which I won't go into anymore, but they got an offer to buy pictures of Mel Appleby while she had cancer, for example, where she'd lost her hair and so on. That was what was going on. People wanted to intrude on her privacy, which is very sad. But
mm.
That was a landscape. With or without you at number 8. I mean, Terence Trent D'Arby's at number 7, so it reminds you of what we're talking about, which time we're talking about. Number 8, though, is the standout chart in that top 10. I'd have thought, with or without you by U2.
Yeah, I'm gonna lay a theory on you now,
Go on.
which is now this is inspired by hearing Peter Jackson, the New Zealand film director,
Yes,
going
yes.
through. You've done the Get Back tapes, which meant he
Yeah.
went through countless hours of stuff.
Mm.
And what he said was, what split up the Beatles wasn't necessarily personal differences of them growing apart. They could have been overcome. What split them up was they didn't have anywhere to get back to. They couldn't get back. That was the idea. Get back after all the studio stuff.
Yeah.
We want to get back.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do it because there was no place in the world for them to get back to.
Mm-hmm.
They were so big that the only thing that was available. So in the end, they went through hundreds of ideas of how to get back, how to do a live show, and then it ended up at the roof, Apple Records in Savile Row, because there was nowhere else to go, because they've done the stadiums and they hated it.
Yeah.
They hated that. They just couldn't see any point. Now, what has happened? Obviously, they played the stadiums last in '66, and what happened subsequently is that because they're going through the stadium PA, so it's obviously rubbish. The sound is terrible. What happens afterwards is that technology develops and the stadium becomes viable as an artistic prospect, and becomes especially viable as a commercial prospect, because you can sell so many tickets to so many people, and that's what the industry wants. And the onset of the stadiums changes everything. It's a vital part of the development of rock. Because you beef it up. You take out the rhythm guitar and you put in more lead guitars, and you beef up the sound, so the sound loses subtlety. The artists, the songs that you write then become different, because they're to get over in a different atmosphere. I've got a mate who's a drummer with a big band here. He says playing in a stadium is totally different from playing in a normal. You play it changes everything.
It's like I was saying about sorry to cut you, like I was saying about the cup matches versus the league matches.
Yeah,
you've got to play it a different way. Otherwise, you end up being shit.
Yeah, well, it has to be less subtle. The clothes change, because you're going to be visible from a long way back. So that all the sartorial excesses of Elton John or Rod Stewart, for example, they're because of the stadium experience. And it changes the musicians as well, who become these remote figures. And everything from our generations, all of the punk, post-punk, two-tone, all of the things that came in the wake, all of that artistically, I think, is a reaction against stadiums. It's all small venues, proximity between the artist and the audience. That's very, very important. We're all in this together. And all of those years that I said earlier on, that football wasn't my first priority at all, because that music scene, late 70s and early 80s, it was just so much going on. It was so vibrant. And what happens in 85, I think, is a sea change with the Live Aid thing. Now, quite apart from, you could certainly question what Live Aid actually achieved.
85 is Band Aid, though. Live Aid is 87, isn't it?
No, it's 85 is Live Aid.
Oh, right. Okay.
Band Aid is Christmas 84, and then the big Live
okay.
Aid show is 85.
Okay.
I don't question the motives of anyone who got involved, not at all. Full credit to them. But what it changes the industry, because it's the return of the big stadium acts. The stadiums win out again. And you mentioned U2, and U2 are now on their way to becoming a big stadium act.
Yeah.
And suddenly the music isn't as interesting anymore. So I look at this chart and I can find almost nothing of the cultural vibrancy that existed between, say, 76 and 83, 84. I
Yeah,
think that
and
I think that's gone.
yeah, it
Hence the
has.
fact that I ended up going back to football. You see how it
Yeah,
all fits together.
I do actually see how it all fits together for you. My reading of this is slightly different narrative. I don't disagree with probably anything that
You,
you said there. I don't think
you're
I
welcome to
disagree
your
with
own
it.
opinion, however wrong it may be.
Yeah, it is probably very wrong. By the way, a late great friend of mine, Rob Partridge, who was the head of publicity at Island Records for many years. He was the guy that discovered you too. You know, he was.
Mm.
I can't remember where he discovered them in some pub, whether in Ireland or in London or something, and got Chris Blackwell of Island Records, the owner, to sign them. And what I have seen, I've seen you two played live. In fact, I
They made
think
my ears bleed in 1981.
well, they're supposed to. Why are
Yeah,
you complaining? You should be thanking them for that, surely.
you
It
could
depends
tell.
where. It depends where in the auditorium or in the landscape you were. But I saw them play live at Roskilde, which is the equivalent of Glastonbury, but in Denmark, and it would have probably been about 1982 or something like that, maybe 83, possibly. Wouldn't have been later than that, I don't think. And I was on the stage myself at one point, but not when U2 was playing. I was on the stage for Ian Dury and the Blockheads, which I'm pretty sure was the same year. But anyway, what they to be able to do, it's like I say, it's a different discipline on a festival stage. Everybody does festival now, and it's an important payday for a lot of artists, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
particularly the ones that have only got like one hit wonders. You know, where are they going to be able to display their arts? You know, they just want to come on, do one, maybe two songs. They'll do a cover of something, then they'll do their biggie. And stadiums allows them to cram all these people in. I don't particularly enjoy the experience, but when I was 20 or so, at the time that U2 played this live gig at Roskilde, I loved it. I mean, first of all, you had um, Bono as your front man. He covered that stage. You see,
Yeah,
you can't do it in a smaller venue in that way because of the
sure,
landscape. He
sure.
covered the stage. So bands do transform themselves. It's very lucrative for themselves. None
Mm,
more successfully than the Rolling Stones, who I also saw. If the Rolling Stones didn't have Mick Jagger prancing all the way across that 100-meter stage or whatever it was, nearly it wouldn't be short of 50 or 60 meters right across from end to end. And that's why he stays fit because he's
yeah.
prancing up and down all the time. He has to stay fit for that. But they are the ones most successfully. Well, you know that in Rio because the biggest concert ever on this
Hmm.
planet was in Rio with the Rolling Stones. And when you see how they do it, that's an art form in itself, mate. It's an art form in itself because you're looking, wow, this is a spectacle. Imagine if this was 80 years ago and it was P.T. Barnum, has come to town or Buffalo Bills, well, Native American, but nevertheless, Wild West show. Imagine if it was that. We'd have thought, wow, we are so lucky to be born in the era where we can see these huge spectacles. The likes of, Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker and Miles Davis. Miles Davis maybe just got to the end of it, got a little bit of it,
He
not
did.
this. Yeah,
Because he saw where the money was.
yeah, yeah. But also, don't forget for jazz, the Montreux Jazz Festival was the one that made it possible for them to do stadiums, really. It wasn't really a stadium thing, but it's close to. Yeah, I think it's a different art form. Fine Young Cannibals there. They went
Hmm.
from being the Beat, the ska two-tone ska group who talked about two-tone earlier on in the landscape of Coventry. They went from being a two-tone ska group that split up, and two of the members, both the guitarists, one of whom I know through his wife, who's a journalist from Malaysia, and they reinvented themselves with Rolling Gift for the Fine Young
Mm.
Cannibals. They were nothing, as you know, like the Beat. Absolutely no. So they've got to reinvent themselves. Not only do they reinvent themselves, they reinvented their style of guitar playing. They reinvented their personalities. They then turned into these two, they were like background people before because they didn't have the charisma, I suppose, to be the front man like Rankin Roger did. But they then sort of styled themselves doing this quirky little dance. Do you remember that little dance they used to do with their legs, were playing the guitar and everything? They reinvented themselves.
Yeah.
You can't take that away from them. If
No,
they
I don't
then,
at all. I think they
yeah,
were terrific.
but then if they say, well, we're going to take that to the stadium, that isn't a kind of a sellout, isn't a diminution. You can prefer one over the other, but I don't think you can say that, oh, well, you see, it's not like the old days, because we'll end up being like those old blokes talking about football, and we've just said,
I've
the
already ended
football.
up being like both Statler and Waldorf out the Muppets, the old guys.
Exactly. Be careful of that. I think that With or Without You is an amazing track, and you two are in the charts with that. It's not the only amazing track in the charts, by the
What else
way.
do you like? Well, what do you like?
Well, Sign of the Times, Prince. You got to give a shout out to
I knew
that
you were going to
because,
go there. Yeah.
well, you've got to, because
Yeah.
it's survived the test of time. I think it's
Mhm.
unlike Bruce Willis's Respect Yourself, which is one to place below at number 22. Sometimes you just got to leave it alone, mate.
Well, I like Moonlighting, and Al
Mate,
Jarreau's in here with
this was the moonlighting time, wasn't it? And I
it
think the
was
moonlighting theme is lower down in the charts as
it
well.
is, yeah, with Al Jarreau. It's the only TV I watched then, Moonlighting, and it's one of my favourite records. We talked about this the other day on the World Football Phone In, but one of my favourites. Blimey, Bruce Willis knows the song because he comes out the lift in his
Yeah,
character in
yeah,
Moonlighting and saying,
yeah,
"Hi everybody,
yeah.
well, I'm Archie Bell and these are the Drills from Houston, Texas, and we
That's
don't only
right.
sing, we dance just as good as we want." And I thought that was fucking brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. We'll allow that, but still,
I
sometimes.
liked it Under the Boardwalk. At this time,
Oh
I'm doing a
no,
radio show on my college radio,
yeah.
and I played his version of Under the Boardwalk quite a lot. I think.
Mate, like I said, there are some things you should leave alone. And as much as I like the geezer, Boy George at number 28 should have stayed away from Everything I Own, the bread tune that Ken Booth made his own.
Yeah.
And Boy George, as much as I love the geezer, my missus toured with him for years and years and years, and he's good, mate. And he showed up at one of her gigs the other day as well. Good on him. But as much as I like the geezer, no, mate, not that. He had his own thing going. You see, if you're a reggae artist, which he was to start off with, with Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? And I know they're all pop artists, not quite reggae, but nevertheless, if you start off like that, there are so many landscapes you can embrace. You can get into a little bit of the dance hall reggae or stick to the lovers or go this way. You don't need to cover other people's songs, not when
I
they
think
own it.
my impression is he just did it because he loves the song.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. But it's always going to be compared, isn't it? And which is the version that you hear on radio now? It's not and Boy George's version probably sold more than Everything I Own because he was so big at this time. Labby Sifri's Something Inside So Strong at number 31. Ooh, that is one of the big, big tunes in this chart. And you can still hear it almost any day of the week and all those hits radio or soul radio and all these different sort of
Yeah.
retro formats.
There's one that I swear I hear almost every day on Brazilian radio.
Go on.
Johnny Hates Jazz.
Oh wow.
Shattered Dreams.
Which one?
Brazilian radio. Johnny Hates Jazz.
Yeah.
Shattered Dreams.
Shattered
You're
Dreams,
giving me
I know,
nothing
yeah.
but Brazilian radio just loves it. It absolutely loves. It's like you can hear the entire Sade first album as well.
Yeah.
It's that kind of vibe.
Do you know what? We should do a podcast where you literally go on about the things that have managed to transfer over to Brazil, things that we barely care about. And somehow it was the same when I lived in Sweden. In Sweden, I don't know if you remember this series that was on BBC in the early 70s. It might have been even started. No, I think it probably started very early 70s, 97. It's called The Brothers, about these three. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Well, it was huge in Sweden. When I went to Sweden like 10 or 12 years later, it was
Mm.
huge. I mean, when I say huge, it was called Bröderna, the brothers, translated loser. And each of the three brothers were huge stars in Sweden. You would never have ever known. They always have these idiosyncratic people who go out there and become huge stars. I can't think of somebody now, but I'm telling you, there's a podcast
So
in
the actors from the brothers, they couldn't walk down the street unmolested in Göteborg.
I remember them being in Stockholm, and they were all called brother so and so. So the Swedish population could distinguish between one and the
Was one of
other.
them Louis?
Louis, brother Louis, yeah, one of them I'm sure was. Anyway, jokes aside, number 34, you gotta fight for your right
Oh
to
yeah, yeah.
party.
Did you like them, the Beastie Boys? Do you
Good
like? I could never take
question.
them seriously, but I remember
Absolute good
Chuck D
question.
used to speak
Yeah.
in favour of them because
Because
he
he was
said
on the
that they're
same label, weren't they? They
right.
from Def Jam. They're on the same
Ah,
label. You can't
right.
kind of start dissing your label mates. You get into a lot of trouble. I knew this guy who worked as a uh, music business lawyer. So he was like he knew about them slightly before we did. It's, oh yeah, the Beastie Boys, Beastie Boys, Beastie Boys. And I was like, what's he on about the Beastie Boys? It's an odd name for a rap group and blah, blah, blah. And then I saw them and I thought they are absolute shite. Absolute flipping shite. And they also nick your Volkswagen insignias on the grill of your Volkswagen. So everywhere you went in London, there was a hole in the middle of the grill if you had a Volkswagen. I swear, because the kids nick them to put them on a chain around their neck like the Beastie Boys. Anyway, I've subsequently understood what their role was in the whole rap firmament. And I can assure you that they are crucial in breaking rap out to an audience that wasn't able to legitimately take part in it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And they're not the only, white rappers. They're not the only white rappers. But what they did, I mean, Eminem finessed it, didn't he? Come, I will be your ultimate, you know, beastie boy, your obnoxious white middle class kid. I will be that. And I can rap. That's what Eminem did. So once Eminem comes, I mean, what the Beastie Boys do nowadays, you wouldn't kind of like call rap really. It's more kind of I don't know what you'd call it, entertainment. But what they did at this point was crucial. So I regret thinking they were absolute or dismissing them as being absolute shite.
I
I don't,
love the way that I think part of the English genius is for something new comes along, and the English will almost instantly find a way to take the piss out of it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
for example, when rap first broke, that Captain Sensible record, he
yeah,
said,
yeah.
"Captain," I said, "What?" It's fucking brilliant. And with the Beastie Boys, it's Tony Hawk, the Morris and the Miners, the
Yes,
stutter
yes.
rap.
Well, I
No,
did.
sleep
Yes.
till
I
bedtime.
know, I know, I know. I
The
covered
English
that.
genius.
I covered that. I did cover that. And I remember, I think I might have even interviewed them. That's how, shallow my journalism was at that point. But yeah, that was a twist. I might have got into lower regions of the charts, but I think the Beasties probably went to number one. And number 40 is another, yeah, unfortunately, I think uninspiring reggae tune.
Mhm.
Boops, Here to Go, Sly and Robbie. Sly and Robbie were really in their element around this time, 1987. They were playing, with everybody that really made it big in reggae. They were behind it. Certainly anybody from Jamaica that made it big, including Grace Jones and so on. Boops, Here to Go. Boops, you know what a boopsie
No.
is? A boops, mate, a boops is a sugar daddy. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they call them Boopsy. And there was this spate of records, in reggae, we go through sort of periods of this is the thing we're talking about now. And, a lot of Jamaican girls, apparently young women, had sugar daddies. So, some of the guys are a little bit, and don't forget reggae music is dominated by the guys. They're a little bit aggrieved and think, okay, we'll get you back. So there are all these songs called, the best one was Lone Ranger's Books. How's it go? Uh, I can't remember that one. No, was it? No, Lone Rangers. That was a different thing. That was about a love bite, actually. Love bump. Sorry. So the best of the Boops ones were I think was Super Cat, who did si Boops, yeah. Gwango nyam him up. Si Boops there. Gwango nyam him up. Basically, which translated says, look, there's your Boops over there. Go and eat him out, basically. Go
Yeah,
and
wait until he dies, and
yeah.
then take his body to the bank to
That's
try
the
and get
way
the
to
loan.
do it. That's the way to do it, as you well know from over your side of the water. Tim, it's been fascinating. We've been talking about Coventry versus Leeds United semi-final of the FA Cup in 1987, April 1987, 12th of April. And the Legendino was there. Tim, cheers.